So currently, there's much hype on SDN, software-defined networking. And so, in what way does NetConf and Yang relate to SDN? I would like to start off by referencing a team of brilliant thinkers, Scott Schenker, Casado, Copeland, and McCune. Strongly recommend to look up some of their presentations on YouTube or SlideShare. They they put things in very crisp and clear. They also explain SDN a little bit in just making it bigger than OpenFlow. SDN is certainly more than OpenFlow. So rather than me repeating those 30 minutes, I recommend that you listen to a couple of those presentations. One is on SlideShare, you will find some on YouTube as well. A thing that they stress is that we need to have well-defined abstractions in network. Rather than a bunch of unrelated protocols, we need to get a little bit more computer science thinking, define well-defined abstractions which we can manipulate. That, along with one of the things they point out, is that network management today is extremely primitive. What do we mean with primitive? Well, it's manual. If you take the current habits of configuring IP networks, you have brilliant CLIs that are extremely useful for individuals to work efficiently as long as you have a limited network and you have everything in your brain. But when it comes to doing dynamic changes, when it comes to programmatic changes in total service provisioning made fully automatic, it becomes tedious, a lot of scripting and hacking and programming, and slow, and doesn't allow for agile services and self-service portals. So that's where we are. And having that as a background, how does actually NetConf and Yang fit into this picture? But my intention is not to hijack Schenker and his friends' thinking. Their pitch is a little bit different at the end. They don't talk about NetConf and Yang, but they talk about abstractions and how we need well-defined abstractions to be able to manipulate things we have in the network. And that's actually what NetConf and Yang does. So SDN, I will not try to define SDN. There are numerous of definitions. 1 year ago or so, you might say that SDN is OpenFlow. That's a very limited and bottom-up definition. Is there some connection between OpenFlow and NetConf and Yang? Well, there is. Well, OpenFlow is its own protocol to manipulate the forwarding table, but to bring the OpenFlow switch up and running and to configure the OpenFlow switch, there is a companion standard called OFConfig, which is Yang and NetConf. So that's a Yang and NetConf connection to the OpenFlow bare bones standard. If we look at SDN, the bigger picture, where we talk about abstractions for network management, where we have service chaining, where we need to have dynamic service changing, dynamic reconfigurations in the network without having people in the loop, without needing to waiting a couple of hours for someone to type the commands, we need to be able to program the network. So that definition of SDN goes back to the vision of programmable networks. Just reprogram the abstractions and make it happen in the network. That's exactly what NetConf and Yang is about. The data models as defined by Yang, those are well-defined abstractions of the devices, of the services that the network provide. So if you have a Yang data model definition, you have a well-defined abstraction of the things you would like to manipulate. Rather than understanding user guides for CLIs, you can manipulate the instantiated Yang data model, and the manipulation of that makes the changes in the network. That wouldn't fly if we didn't have a well-defined API. If we have something we can manipulate, we need a means of actually manipulating it, and that's NetConf, and NetConf has transactions. So with the transactions, we can manipulate the abstractions as defined by data model and commit that to the network. And that for sure is a high-level abstraction of the services in the network that enables dynamic programmatic network configuration, reconfiguration, and service configuration and reconfiguration as well. So that was a very quickie on how these hot topics are related. So NetConf and Yang gives a bit of flesh to the SDN hype.